You know, when you reach a certain age, you start to understand your body in ways you didn't when you were young. Every ache, every unusual feeling, you pay attention because you know that time isn't infinite. Your body starts sending you messages and you learn to listen. That's why 3 weeks ago, when I felt that tightness in my chest, that pressure that wouldn't go away, I knew I needed to get it checked out. I've lived a long life, pushed my body hard, worked long hours, done my own stunts for years. I know the difference between normal fatigue and something that needs attention. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at home reading through some contracts when the sensation started. Not sharp pain, just pressure, like someone was sitting on my chest. Discomfort spreading to my left arm. I know enough to know those are warning signs. Could be nothing. Could be something serious. At my age, you don't take chances. I drove myself to Westside Medical Center, one of the premier hospitals in Los Angeles. Beautiful building, all glass and modern architecture, the kind of place that screams money and prestige. I'd been there before, not as a patient, but for other reasons I'll get to later. I knew it was supposed to be one of the best facilities in the city, state-of-the-art equipment, renowned doctors, excellent outcomes. That's what the brochure said anyway. I parked in the emergency lot and walked to the entrance. I was dressed the way I usually dress, jeans, a flannel shirt, comfortable shoes, nothing fancy. I've never been one for putting on airs, for dressing to impress. I'm just a man like any other. And when you're not feeling well, the last thing you're thinking about is your wardrobe. The emergency room entrance was impressive. Automatic glass doors, a spacious lobby with modern furniture, flat-screen televisions playing news on mute. Very clean, very professional, but also very cold. Not temperature-wise, though the air conditioning was running strong. Cold in feeling, sterile, more like a high-end hotel lobby than a place where people came in crisis. I approached the reception desk. A young woman, couldn't have been more than 30, sat behind the counter. Designer glasses, perfectly styled hair, nails done. She looked up from her computer screen with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm having chest pain," I said. "Pressure radiating to my left arm. Started about 45 minutes ago." You'd think that would get an immediate response. Chest pain, classic heart attack symptoms. But she just nodded and slid a clipboard toward me. "Fill out these forms. I'll need your insurance card and ID." I took the clipboard, pulled out my wallet, and handed her my Medicare card and driver's license. I saw something flicker across her face when she saw the Medicare card. Just a brief change in expression, but I noticed it. I've spent my life studying human expressions, reading what people don't say out loud. She looked at my card, then at me, then back at her computer screen.
"Take a seat in the waiting area. Someone will call you."
"How long do you think it'll be?" I asked. "I'm experiencing chest pain." "We're very busy today, sir. The triage nurse will assess you when it's your turn." I wanted to push back to explain that chest pain was supposed to be treated as an emergency, but I could see in her eyes that it wouldn't matter. So I took the clipboard and went to find a seat. The waiting area was about half full. I found a chair in the corner and started filling out the forms. Name, address, date of birth, medical history, the usual questions. Around me I could hear the sounds of the emergency room, a child crying somewhere, a television playing too loud, the constant beep and hum of medical equipment from beyond the doors that led to the treatment areas. I finished the forms and brought them back to the desk. The young woman took them without looking up, filed them somewhere, and went back to her computer. I returned to my seat, and I waited. 30 minutes passed. The pressure in my chest hadn't gotten worse, but it hadn't gotten better either. I watched other people come in, a young man in workout clothes with what looked like a sprained ankle. He had private insurance from his tech company job. I could hear him telling the receptionist he was taken back within 15 minutes. A woman in her 40s came in with severe abdominal pain, private insurance through her employer. She was taken back almost immediately. An elderly couple came in, the husband supporting his wife who could barely walk. They had Medicare. They were told to wait. I started to see the pattern. An hour went by, then 90 minutes. The pressure in my chest was constant now, and I was starting to feel slightly nauseous. I went back to the desk. "Excuse me," I said. "I've been waiting over an hour and a half. I'm still having chest pain." The receptionist, a different one now, equally young, equally indifferent, looked at me with barely concealed annoyance. Sir, we're doing the best we can. We have to prioritize based on the severity of the condition. Chest pain isn't severe. The triage nurse will determine that. Please return to your seat. I went back to my chair. I thought about leaving, going to a different hospital, but I also knew that starting over somewhere else would mean more waiting, more forms, more delays. So I stayed. Another hour passed. 2.5 hours now. I watched as younger patients with private insurance continued to be seen ahead of me. I watched as the staff chatted at the desk, unhurried, unconcerned. Finally, a nurse called my name. I stood, feeling the stiffness in my legs from sitting so long, and followed her through the doors into the treatment area. She was young, probably fresh out of nursing school, with an air of exhaustion and overwork that seemed common among the staff. She led me to a small triage area, took my blood pressure, my temperature, listened to my heart. "Still having the chest pain?" she asked, her tone suggesting this was more routine than urgent. "Yes." For almost 3 hours now. She made a note on her tablet. "Well, at your age, you know, these things happen and could be anything. Indigestion, muscle strain, anxiety, could be a heart attack," I said. She smiled, the kind of smile you give to someone you think is overreacting. "If it was a serious heart attack, you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me. But we'll get you seen. It might be a while, though. We're very backed up today." She led me to a bed in the hallway. Not even a room. A bed in the hallway with a thin curtain for privacy. She told me to change into a gown, left me a plastic bag for my clothes, and disappeared. I changed, feeling the indignity of it, the cold air on my skin, the sounds of the busy ER all around me. I lay down on the bed and waited some more. I could hear everything. Doctors discussing cases, nurses chatting about their plans after work, patients moaning in pain, machines beeping. The fluorescent lights overhead were harsh, unforgiving. I closed my eyes and tried to stay calm. Another hour went by, 4 hours now, since I'd arrived. The chest pain was still there, steady, uncomfortable. I was starting to wonder if I'd made a mistake coming here. Maybe I should have gone to a different hospital. Maybe I should have called 911, arrived by ambulance. Maybe then they would have taken me seriously. A young doctor finally appeared, tablet in hand, barely glancing at me. "Mr. Eastwood," he said, looking at his screen. "Chest pain?" "Yes." "How long?" "About 4.5 hours now." He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the recognition in his eyes. But it wasn't recognition of who I was. It was recognition of what I was. An old man, another elderly patient with vague symptoms and Medicare. "We'll run some tests," he said, EKG, blood work. "But honestly, at your age, this could be a lot of things. Most likely not a heart attack, or you'd be in much worse shape by now. I'd like the tests run anyway." "Of course. We'll get to it as soon as we can." He left. Another hour passed. A technician came and did an EKG. The cold gel on my chest, the electrodes attached to my skin. She was efficient, professional, but also rushed. She finished and left without saying much. More waiting. I could hear him discussing my case at the nurse's station just a few feet away. The Eastwood guy, the old one with Medicare. "Yeah, EKG looks okay. Probably just gastric reflux or something. We should discharge him soon. We need the bed. Let's wait for the blood work." "Why? It's going to be fine. He's just old and worried." I lay there listening to them dismiss me, reduce me to a category. Old, Medicare, low priority, not worth their time. That's when I saw someone I recognized walking through the ER. Dr. Sarah Chen, the hospital's chief of medicine. I had met her before at board meetings, though she wouldn't know that. I'd been very careful to keep my involvement with the hospital quiet, anonymous, but I knew who she was. She was reviewing a chart, walking with purpose, when one of the nurses stopped her. "Dr. Chen, we have a situation. We just realized we have Clint Eastwood in bed 7. She looked up sharply. "What?" "Clint Eastwood, the actor. He came in with chest pain over 5 hours ago." I saw the color drain from her face. She walked quickly to my bedside, pulled back the curtain. "Mr. Eastwood," she said, and there was genuine concern in her voice now, tinged with panic. "I had no idea you were here. How long have you been waiting?" "About 5.5 hours," I said calmly. 5.5. Why wasn't I notified? Why weren't you taken straight back? She was looking at the nurses now, her voice rising. "This is Clint Eastwood. Do you understand who this is?" And we didn't know, one of the nurses stammered. He just came in like any other patient. He was not just any other patient. Dr. Chen turned back to me, her professional composure cracking. "Mr. Eastwood, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable. Let me get our best cardiologist down here immediately." "Don't bother," I said quietly. "I want to be treated exactly like you've been treating me, like any other patient with Medicare." She stared at me, confused. In fact, I continued, "Let's talk about how I've been treated, because I think it's time we had an honest conversation about what's happening in this hospital." She looked around nervously, aware that people were watching, listening.
Perhaps we could discuss this in my office?
She suggested. "No, right here is fine, because I want your staff to hear this." I sat up slowly, the chest pain still there, but manageable. I'd been in worse physical discomfort before. This was nothing compared to some of the injuries I'd had over the years. But the way I'd been treated, that was something else. I came here 5.5 hours ago with chest pain. Classic heart attack symptoms. I was told to wait. I watched as younger patients with private insurance were seen immediately. I was given a bed in a hallway. I was dismissed by a nurse who told me that at my age these things happen. I was treated like I was wasting everyone's time. Dr. Chen's face had gone from pale to red. "Mr. Eastwood, I assure you, that's not how we—" "That's exactly how you operate," I interrupted. "And the only reason you care now is because you found out who I am. But here's the thing, Dr. Chen. I'm not special. I'm just a man with chest pain. Just like every other person with chest pain who comes through those doors deserves immediate attention and respect." She was silent now, along with every nurse and doctor within earshot. "Do you know why I know so much about this hospital?" I asked. "Do you know why I chose to come here, even though I've heard the complaints about how Medicare patients are treated?" She shook her head. "Because I'm one of the primary private donors to this hospital. Over the past decade, I've given millions to fund your cardiac wing, your emergency department upgrades, your research programs. I've done it anonymously because I don't believe in buying influence or special treatment. I believed in your mission statement, the one that says every patient deserves the highest quality care, regardless of ability to pay." I could see the realization hitting her like a physical blow. But I also wanted to see for myself what really happens here. So I came in like any other elderly patient with Medicare. And what I found was a two-tier system. One for people with money and private insurance. Another for people like me who you assume can't afford better care. Mr. Eastwood, I'm not finished. You know what the cruelest part is? Not the waiting, though that's dangerous. Not even the dismissive attitude, though that's demeaning. It's the assumption that my life at my age is worth less. That because I'm old, chest pain is just something that happens. That I'm probably overreacting, that I'm not worth your time or your best care. I looked at the young doctor who'd examined me earlier. He was standing nearby, looking like he wanted to disappear. "You told me that if it was a serious heart attack, I'd be in worse shape. But you don't know that. Heart attacks present differently in different people, especially in elderly patients. You made an assumption based on my age and my insurance, not on my symptoms." I turned back to Dr. Chen. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to leave now. I'll get checked out somewhere else, somewhere that treats all patients equally. And then we're going to have a very serious conversation about my continued support for this hospital. Please, Mr. Eastwood, let us treat you properly now. Let me call our best—" "Now you want to give me your best? After 5.5 hours after I've been dismissed and marginalized and left in a hallway? No. The time for that was when I first walked in with chest pain. The time for that is for every patient who walks in with chest pain, regardless of age or insurance." I started to get dressed, pulling my clothes out of the plastic bag. "I've been funding free clinics in underserved neighborhoods for years. Do you know why? Because I've seen what happens when healthcare becomes a business that prioritizes profit over people. I've seen elderly patients die because they delayed treatment knowing they'd face this kind of dismissive care. I've seen families bankrupted by medical bills. And I thought maybe if I support places like this, places that claim to value all patients equally, maybe it would make a difference." I buttoned my shirt, looking at the assembled staff. But it doesn't matter how much money goes to equipment and facilities if the culture is rotten. If the people making the decisions about who gets seen first, who gets the best care, who matters, if those people have decided that some lives are worth more than others. Dr. Chen was visibly shaking now. "Please, Let us make this right. You can make it right by changing how you treat every patient. Not just the ones you think are important, not just the ones with good insurance. Every single person who comes through those doors, scared and in pain and needing help. I finished dressing and stood. The chest pain was still there, but it had lessened somewhat. Probably was just stress or indigestion, but it could have been serious. And if it had been, the delay could have been fatal. I'll be in touch about my funding, I said to Dr. Chen. Whether it continues depends on what changes you make. Real changes, not just policy statements, but actual shifts in how people are treated. I walked out of that ER through the waiting room where people were still sitting, still waiting, still hoping that someone would see them, would care about their pain, would treat them like they mattered. And I thought about the healthcare system in this country, how broken it is, how it's become a business that treats patients like customers, evaluating their worth based on their ability to pay, how it's created classes of people, some deemed worthy of immediate care, others told to wait, told that their symptoms are probably nothing, told that at their age, what do they expect? I went to a different hospital, a smaller one, less prestigious. I was seen immediately. They ran tests, determined it was likely acid reflux and stress, nothing serious, but they treated me with respect, with concern, with the kind of care every person deserves. That's the lesson here. Healthcare shouldn't be a privilege. It shouldn't be something you have to be young or wealthy or well-insured to receive properly. It's a basic human right. When someone comes to you in pain, scared, needing help, your first question shouldn't be, what's your insurance or how old are you? It should be, how can I help you? I don't know yet what I'll do about my funding for Westside Medical Center. Part of me wants to pull it all to put that money into places that actually live up to their stated values. But another part of me thinks maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe what happened to me can be a catalyst for real change. Because here's the truth, I was lucky. I could go to another hospital. I had other options. I wasn't desperately poor or completely dependent on Medicare as my only hope for care. But millions of people are. Millions of elderly Americans. Millions of people without perfect insurance. They face this kind of treatment every day. And for them, there's no second chance. There's no pulling strings or making phone calls. There's just the slow, grinding reality of a system that has decided they don't matter as much. That's what I want you to take away from this. When you see an elderly person, don't assume their concerns are less valid because of their age. When you see someone with Medicare or Medicaid, don't assume they're less deserving of your time and expertise. Every person who walks through those doors is someone's parent, grandparent, spouse, friend. Every person has lived a life, has people who love them, has value that can't be measured by insurance coverage or age. And if you work in healthcare, remember why you started. Remember that oath you took. Remember that medicine is supposed to be about healing, about caring, about treating every patient with dignity and respect, not about maximizing profit or seeing the most valuable patients first. That's what I learned lying on that bed in the hallway for 5.5 hours. The system is broken, and it won't fix itself. It needs people willing to stand up, to speak out, to demand better for themselves and for everyone else who doesn't have a voice or the power to make people listen. Because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings. We all get old if we're lucky. We all get sick. We all need help sometimes. And we all deserve to be treated like our lives matter, regardless of what's in our wallet or how many years we've been on this earth.